from 97.5 ESPN is Houston is kind enough to give us a few minutes on this morning. Fred, thanks for waking up with us, particularly at this hour. How are you?
I am fantastic, my friend. And chaos is one way to describe it.
Well, there's no doubt. But Fred, I mean, are they really? Is this a real possibility of Deshaun Watson getting traded? Because we have people over here going, would you trade Tua for Watson? And we can't type yes or say yes fast enough. This is an established elite quarterback. You don't trade these guys, Fred.
No, and I think in the end, cooler heads will prevail. And I think that once Nick Caserio gets a chance to meet with Deshaun, he'll calm him down. And Deshaun will be involved in the coaching search, which is all he ever wanted, was to just have a say. And I think they'll get it worked out. But if not, then, I don't blame the guy. He basically got lied to. And I don't blame him for being upset. This is the same old stuff this franchise has done since Bob McNair passed away. I mean, Cal just either is a liar or a buffoon or both. And I wouldn't want to work in that organization.
Well, Fred, you've said two things here which strike me. You said same old stuff. All right. And literally what Deshaun Watson tweeted out when he found out that they hired Nick Caserio and he had no input after he was told that he would, was he tweeted same old story, ... But also you and seemingly many others. I mean, Fred, let's be honest. When a player is in a dispute with a team, most of us side with the team. Why? We've never understood, because most of us are the players. Okay, and we would think that we would all gravitate to the players. But when it's player versus team, most of us side with the jersey. And it seems as if in this case, most of Houston would side with Deshaun over the Texans.
Absolutely. And part of it is you had to deal with Bill O'Brien for 6 years. And while he was an okay coach, he was a horrible GM. And they got a lot of bad people reacted very poorly to the DeAndre Hopkins trade, as they should have. And I think they lost any goodwill they had at that point. And the goodwill that you got when you fired O'Brien, you just blew it all off by hiring another Patriots guy. And I think Nick Caserio may be a good GM. He might do a good job. He seems like a smart guy. But to go off script and hire this guy just makes it look like you haven't learned a thing. And I think that's kind of why the fan base is behind Deshaun here. And it's been interesting. J.J. Watt's been really quiet because I think if he were to start weighing in, it's not really something he does. But if he did, I think it would just totally flip to Deshaun Watson.
Well, with that being said, J.J. Watt going to be a Houston Texan next year?
I don't think so. I think he is probably – he's quieter about it, but he wants out, and he deserves a chance to go play someplace where you can win. They're not going to be able to turn this around in a year with the mess that's been left behind. But I would suspect that he gets shipped somewhere, or they'll redo his contract. He's due to make 16.5, but they could cut him with no penalty whatsoever. But I would say if I were putting odds on it, I'd say about 70% he's elsewhere, 30% they redo his contract and he sticks around.
All right, Fred, just humor me for a second, if you could. Is there any deal that you think the Texans fan could actually live with? Like, the stuff that's going to be thrown out there. Like, I'm just going to call into your show and go, hey, David here in Houston, just wondering, Fred, would you accept Tua and the 2 1s and 2 2s they have this year? I'll hang up and listen.
I don't think there's I think the only possibility would be something just absolutely ridiculous. And then maybe people would say, okay, we could live with it. But I don't know of one off the top of my head. We threw one out involving the Jets, and that would be, basically if I were GM, what I would ask for if I were trying to trade for him. And there's no way they'd go for it. So no, I don't think there's a trade out there. And I still don't think he'll get traded. I think it's so ridiculous to even consider it. But this is an organization that has put all its trust in basically a team chaplain who's essentially the Kenneth Copeland of the NFL. I don't think anything's impossible.
You can't just drop a line on us like that and
really
expect us
solid line, Fred.
to continue our show. Come on now, Fred.
Really solid. All right, Fred, we just had on a guy from Cleveland that we've had on a ton. And, they're just in la-la land. The Browns beat the Steelers, may have put Ben into retirement yesterday. The Buckeyes are playing for the national title. Things are good, even though they just traded their best baseball player. And I look at Houston right now. The Texans are a mess. Harden may get traded, and whatever experiment went for the Rockets didn't work. The Astros, well, we all know what's happened there in the last couple of years. I mean, the state of Houston sports was really damn good just 2 years ago. How quickly things have turned, haven't they?
Yeah, it's made my job easy, but it's a mess right now. And when you look at the Watson thing, the fact that you look at all the great players that have been here, and to think that in March James Harden might be gone. They may trade Carlos Correa. They've already basically said we're not bringing George Springer back. And then you look at, Watt's probably gone. And if Deshaun winds up gone, I mean, that's some serious star power that you've just shipped out, and everybody's hitting the reset button, which in all three cases, I think is going to set them back quite a bit. Now, the Astros are still really good, and they're kind of going a different direction. They're going to use the Tampa Bay model now and not spend as much money, but I still think they'll be competitive. But the other two, man, you make those moves, and you're looking at a long, dark winter, man. Because without Deshaun on this team, there's not a deal you can make for Harden where you're going to be as good. So it's a real mess right now. But hey, it makes for great talk radio.
Fred Fowler.
Mediocrity's no good, Fred.
No.
Either being really good or being really bad. You don't want to live in purgatory.
Well, yeah, that's where I think we're headed, is kind of the purgatory with the Rockets and the Astros. I think the Texans, if they do some of the things that we've talked about, are they're looking at being what the Browns were for years. And while that's great for the Browns now, it certainly won't be for the next 5-6 years if they do this.
Fred Fowler, 97.5 ESPN in Houston. Follow him on Twitter at Fred Fowler, Faour. Well, Fred, you took me to where I wanted to go. It was 3 years ago the Browns were 0-16. Now, granted, they had all draft capital and a ton of cap room to be able to begin 3 years ago turning it around. Right now, the Texans have neither, which is why I think and you could see, Fred, where, if you and I were working for them, while we would desperately not want to trade him, if you can get your hands on a young quarterback and a whole bunch of draft capital and all of a sudden start to have salary cap room again, you are beginning to accomplish everything that you need to accomplish.
Yeah, and so there is a case to be made for it, because if it depends on how bad you think this roster is, and I think it's pretty bad. Now, they do have some cap problems, but I've gone through, and there's a bunch of guys they can get rid of that are absolutely useless that'll get them cap room to sign a few guys. But is that going to be enough to get you to where you're a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the next 2 or 3 years? And if you're not, and if you're realistic about it, then you might look at it and say, this might be the way to go. Because if we're looking 3 years down the road, Deshaun will be 28. He'll still be in his prime, but we will have wasted another 2 years of his career, which is definitely what they did this year. So there is a good case to be made for it. I don't know that. I don't know that Nick Caserio is going to have the stones to make that move, because they've always had such goodwill in this city. I mean, they sold out every game, obviously, up until this year. But they've got a waiting list for tickets. I think you trade Deshaun Watson, and all that's gone. I think your waiting list is gone. I think you're going to lose a lot of loyal fans who have been spending tons of money for years. And that's when maybe Cal McNair will pop up and realize, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is, we can piss people off. We can lose fans, because so far nothing they've done has really resonated with the fan base enough for them to say, you know what? Enough of this. We're going to quit trusting this buffoon with a standalone mustache and quit spending money on him. And it just hasn't happened yet. That, I think, will do it. And maybe trading JJ will do it too. I mean, the Hopkins thing did turn things around a little bit.
Fred, thanks for making time for us, particularly at this hour. Well, you're going to have an easy week, so put your feet up, enjoy it. And thanks for doing this for us, and all the best. Stay safe.
Hey, anytime, guys. Happy to do it, man.
Fred Fowler, 97.